BadEmpanada agree
There was
with you
a
on
bit
this?
of a discussion on the Twitter platform recently over a tweet by noted Turkish man Hasan Piker. In this tweet, Hasan Piker argued that the US president could end the genocide in Gaza with one phone call. And a lot of really stupid people took issue with this. The tweets in question can be seen here in this post by friend of the show, The Willie Mack Show. So the original tweet is this one by Hasan Piker. One phone call is all it would take to stop Israel's genocide. If Israel doesn't comply, shut off weapons transfers. If Israel looks to get weapons elsewhere, put up a sanctions package. And if that fails, invade Israel militarily. That is why all it takes is one phone call. And this was responded to in really the most generic Zionist way.
All it takes for Hasan to end the war in the Middle East is one phone call or a full-scale U.S. invasion. The escalation of this tweet is hilarious. Oh my God. That is where America's power comes from. That's it. That's not where it's going to go. Why are these people so stupid? I don't understand. It's so goddamn frustrating how stupid these people are. And we have propped up stupid people. Like the online community has propped up people who are not knowledgeable on the history of the dynamic between Israel and the United States of America. And now they just fucking buy into it. It's just, I don't understand it. I literally don't understand it. Are you so incurious? I fucking laid it out right there. It's reductive. It's within the confines of Twitter word limitations, but
was bringing.
Here's Christian Amanpour also saying it. I guess they need to hear more like famous liberals say this shit because that's the only people that they respect. But I don't even think they respect those people. It's kind of like when I say it's a genocide, I hate Hasan, so I don't believe it. But if fucking other people say it, other people that I trust because they come from like reputable outlets, if they finally say it, then I'll believe it. But Hasan is still in the wrong, kind of like that.
Like, I'm making a video about this. Probably my next main channel video is going to be about this. It's going to be called something like How Zionists Argue or something like that. And it's going to talk about the main Zionist argumentative tactic, which is just repeating back what you said as if it's self-evidently wrong and then accusing you of anti-Semitism. Not always the second part, but usually. In this case, they were gracious enough not to accuse you of anti-Semitism. Very nice of them. They usually would. So the original response is this Twitter account saying, Hasan thinks you could solve the Israel problem with one phone call. There's no attempt to debunk this because, obviously most of Israel's armaments come from the US and they could not easily replace the American weapons manufacturers who give them these armaments. So if the US cut off their supply of arms, they would be unable to prosecute the war. You
need to understand why. I mean, I don't even think these guys know what they're doing in terms of like trying to prop up pro-Israeli propaganda. When a Democrat or a liberal, like the liberal Vox reporter, also responded to this and said that it's like childish and stupid. She knows better. She's doing that deliberately. These guys are just stupid and they think this is a good way to, I guess, like counter whatever I'm saying or belittle whatever I'm saying without any additional information, right? Without any knowledge, without any counter narrative, without any counter examples, is just simply to be like, this guy is real stupid, huh? Right? That's it. And there are plenty of people who have also propped themselves up into believing that, into believing this like ridiculous thing. So there is no value. If someone is like so actively well poisoned, you don't ever have to address them. You could just be like, this guy's wrong. And unfortunately, there are certain sides of the internet with where people get their notes from like apolitical slop tubers where they just genuinely don't think about these things at all. They don't. They just go, oh, Hasan said it, so it must be wrong. It's a very stupid way to learn anything. And that's why you find yourself wrong in many circumstances. And you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't reflexively disbelieve someone in general. I'm saying this about like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tucker Carlson, people who even cynically put forward correct information from time to time. You shouldn't do that for anybody, okay? This is not just for me. You should not do that for anyone. You should always try to investigate further what the claims are and then try to disprove said claims, okay?
Be in real risk of like being attacked by their neighbors and stuff because the US support, the US patronage is what allows them to do what they do. So a phone call like saying, hey, stop what you're doing in Gaza, withdraw immediately, or the arms transfers are gone. That would end the genocide right away. It's not a question of, could this happen? It's a question of, why doesn't it happen? They don't even try to argue against it. They just restate the statement as if it's self-evidently wrong. And I really like the Willie Mack Show response here, because Willie Mack Show seems to have thought that Hasan was saying here that he could call Israel and end the genocide. I don't know.
All it takes for Hasan to end the war in the Middle East is one phone call or a full scale. I don't even know if these guys are saying, like, I'm going to make the phone call. I don't think anybody actually believes that, right? I hope people don't literally believe that. They can't be that stupid. I mean, that's stupidity beyond what I'm accustomed to online. I see a lot of stupids online, but this is like a new level of stupidity. I don't think he's saying that.
I don't know how to take this aside from him saying that. All it takes
They
for
are
Hasan,
saying that? No, that's what they think, Law. No, I think it's better for us not to assume that our interlocutors are just like that dumb. Okay. I think they're dumb, but they're not that dumb, right? It's better to assume, it's better to try to be charitable. I don't think he's saying you would make the call. He's saying as in Hasan's view, which is only slightly less stupid. Yeah. I think that this is him just saying, this is my view. Ethan literally did post that you think you can make that call personally. Really? Okay. Yeah, I guess I just had, what is this? Hasan, who would solve Israel and Palestine with one perfect phone call, and Noah, who thinks the Houthis are the only ones following international law. The fact that these airheads dominate lefty discourse on Palestine is a bigger gift to Netanyahu than anything else they could accuse me of doing. Why? These guys are political commentators, right? Like, just address the issue, like address the argument. Explain why America does not have this level of control over Israel, despite the fact that America has supplied 70% of all offensive and defensive weapons to Israel. Explain how Israel would make up for the lack of munitions that they are getting from the United States of America. Then explain how many Israeli military officials in the past, and even during this instance of genocide, has actively told the media in Israel that America has demanded that they scale back on certain instances in spite of what the Israeli public is demanding. And they've literally said, we can't do this without the United States of America. Explain why throughout Israeli history, American politicians, American presidents have actually made that one singular phone call to stop Israel's atrocities. Explain all of that. You know, there is no Israel without America. It's that simple. Why don't they address any of these points and instead just go, instead they just like vaguely gesture into the wild and go, this guy's such an airhead. He's so dumb. What is this? Does Ethan think Hasan is saying he's the one who would make the call? What the fuck is this dude saying? Me when I'm daydreaming in the shower about being a hero, and then everyone stood up and clapped. I mean, he's implying that, but I think it's so stupid. It's irrelevant. It's not even worth addressing. Who cares? Like, this is the expectation I have from a slop tuber, certainly, but it's not the expectation I have from like a person who is, I guess, my ideological opponent here. You know, a person who is who is making this claim that I'm wrong should probably explain why I'm wrong, right? It's very strange. There is no continued genocide without American weapons. Okay? It's that simple. And not only that, but also if America cut off weapons to Israel, which would never even happen because it wouldn't get to that point, Israel does not have a meaningful way to make up for that supply chain. Okay? Especially in the short period of time necessary to continue this genocide. Who are they going to go to? Because when America shuts off weapons, you could say, oh, well, they're going to get it from Germany. Germany doesn't have the same industrial base that America has for a steady flow of weapons. They don't have the same arsenal. They do not have the same industrial base. And also, many of the weapons that Germany would probably send to Israel in the interim would not even be German weapons. They would be American weapons. So if America is shutting off weapons, then Germany cannot send weapons to Israel. That's number one. Number two, let's say they're getting it from Russia, right? Also wrong for a multitude of different reasons. One, because Russia is invested in pummeling Ukraine. They do not have that runway to make up for it. Okay, they have their hands too busy with Ukraine to begin with, but also on top of that, they have a strategic allegiance with Iran as well as a strategic allegiance with Israel as well. But because of their strategic allegiance with Iran, they can't let go of their partnership with Iran either. Okay, Iran is still an important player in the region and an important player against American interests in the region. There is no place they can get it from, with the exception maybe of China, which I highly doubt China would, out of nowhere, start supplying Israel with a steady flow of munitions so they can continue doing their genocide, no matter how much they love trade maxing. Okay? China is their number one supplier in general for their economy. It's profoundly important to the Israeli economy. They do a tremendous amount of trade with China. It's their number one. It is the number one country that they trade with. Israel trades with. Okay? China has a lot of influence here as well, which is why I've also routinely criticized China, just kind of gesturing against Israel and being like, Palestinians deserve to live, please stop, and then never really following through with any sort of coherent policy there. But there is no country that Israel could go to that could give them the same amount of and the same steady flow of weapons in the short period of time necessary if America shut off the weapons transfers. This is precisely the reason why it takes one phone call. But let's say Israel was, in this hypothetical scenario, capable of making up for the lack of munitions, and they were able to literally go and work Chinese weapon systems. Let's say China decided we're arming Israel, okay? That's the only country that has the bandwidth and has the industrial base to be able to supply weapons to Israel, right? America and Israel's allegiance has fallen apart. All of a sudden, America is anti-Israel. They said, no more weapons, right? Let's say China is actually sending the weapons. Let's say that while China is actually sending the weapons, Israel what? Magically figures out how to operate Chinese weapon systems? Like, you have to get trained on this stuff. You can't just like come in and be like, all right, perfect. Now these anti-aircraft defense systems that they shipped in, which is a logistical nightmare to begin with, we can now use. You can't do that. It takes a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of training for people to be able to start using this stuff, okay? You know this from what happened in Ukraine. It's not plug and play. These are foreign adversaries. Israel is an ally. Israel uses American weapons. They do not use Chinese weapons. They use Chinese surveillance and things of that nature, Chinese drones, but they do not use Chinese weapons. They can't. It's an entirely different weapon system. America would never allow that anyway. America would nuke Israel before allowing Israel, who at that point would still retain a bunch of American weapons, a bunch of American like missile systems, to then all of a sudden bring in Chinese weapon systems onto that same platform. That would be insane. That would destroy any kind of security America had, because now Israel would give everything to China. Okay, there are a million different reasons as to why this would never work. But let's say it did work. Okay, let's say it did work. Let's say magically all of these impossible things took place, and Israel was able to perfectly take all the Chinese weapons and change their platforms to the Chinese platform, and were able to train themselves overnight and started using that to continue as genocide. At that point, America would just destroy Israel's economy. That's it. America would say, no more trade with Israel. If you trade with Israel, with the exception of China, let's say, because it's too much of a powerful player in the global marketplace, they would just pull a Cuba on Israel. They would do a full-blown embargo. They would stop other countries from trading with Israel. It would, again, never get to that point. Regardless, I can't stress this enough, because that is the reason why all it takes is one phone call. And let's say Israel says, we're doing full genocide. We don't care. You can kill our economy. Okay? You can kill our economy. We still want to do genocide. At that point, they would invade. Okay? That's it. It never gets to that point, and it never has to get to that point, because it starts and ends with one phone call for this reason. It would never in a million years get to the point where America's invading Israel militarily. Okay? That is why all it takes is one phone call. Even from the first step to the second one, there is a tremendous amount of impossible things that are literally physically not possible for Israel to do to be able to continue its genocide. Okay? Once again, 70% of all weapons that Israel's using, both offensively and defensively, are supplied since October 7 by the United States of America.
To end the war in the Middle East is one phone call. He genuinely seems to think that Hasan was talking about himself rather than the President of the United States of America. God, I love Willie Mack Show. He's so funny. But look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to assume this is just some bad wording on his part. And what he meant is that he thinks it's ridiculous to think that the US president could ever end a conflict in the Middle East or a war in the Middle East with one phone call. And I'm going to look into whether or not there's any precedent for this happening or not. Okay? So, in 1982, during the Israeli assault on Lebanon, there was a phone
Ronald Reagan made a phone call, said, "You are doing the Holocaust. Stop."
Call between President Ronald Reagan and Prime Minister of Israel, the noted terrorist Menachem Begin, whose name I surely mispronounced, but I mean, modern Hebrew is a constructed language anyway. They pronounce everything wrong, so I'm going to also pronounce things wrong. He called him and he said he told him, stop the bombing. What you're doing here is not okay. We don't support this. Stop. And within 20 minutes, the bombing stopped. Okay, so that's one precedent for this happening. Ronald Reagan, by the way, Ronald Reagan was an extremely Trumpish president. He was just better on camera than Trump is because he was an actor and Trump isn't. Ronald Reagan was absurdly stupid, absurdly dumb, and even
Wrong. Donald Trump is a TV guy as well, and that's the reason why he's very telegenic and very charismatic. I disagree with BadEmpanada.
Even he did this. So clearly the US president does have this power. They have massive coercive power over Israel because Israel relies on their arms to be able to prosecute its war. It relies on their diplomatic support and in many ways their indirect or direct military support. Like the US, for example, famously helps shoot down missiles that are launched at Israel. It famously patrols the waters near Israel just to keep, make sure its presence is known because Israel wouldn't be able to do that as effectively by itself. You also see like the US attacking Yemen essentially on behalf of Israel a number of times, and the US attacking Iran on behalf of Israel. So the US does a ton for Israel, and Israel knows this, obviously. The Israeli leaders know this. And if this stuff was taken away from them, or if there was a credible threat that it could be taken away from them, Israel would have to fall in line. So the question here is not, would that work? As Hasan Piker said, it does work. It's proven to have worked in the past. And even like a basic thought experiment using the most basic Occam's razor would have you conclude that yes, Israel would indeed have to stop the genocide in Gaza if the US president called Netanyahu and told him in firm terms with a clear threat to escalate if he doesn't, that this needs to stop. The US is the world's premier empire. Israel is one of its proxy states. This is obvious. It's just so evident. It's so clear why they have not attempted to actually refute what's being said here. Because as I said, the Zionist argumentation is to repeat what you are saying as if it's self-evidently wrong and then call you anti-Semitic for saying it. So rather than attempt to refute what Hasan was saying here on the merits of his statement, on the merits of the evidence for it, they just say, all it would take is one phone call.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that can actually kind of jam up this machine of death and destruction, and that is mounted opposition, mounted military opposition that is too consequential for Israel and even the United States of America. We saw this with the 12-day war with Iran. Okay? Iran was able to successfully cripple the Israeli economy and shut Israeli society down for 12 straight days. And in the process, they actually expended American munitions. THAAD missiles are not cheap. They take years to build. We do not have enough stockpiles. Israel does not have enough stockpiles, certainly, but Israel does not even have enough stockpiles with America backing Israel. So there was a point as well. There is a point where this can come to a halt without America making that phone call or force America to make that phone call. In the Western world, our only way of pushing for this phone call is by constantly protesting, constantly creating an environment where we punish politicians for maintaining their allegiance with Israel. And then it's same in the Western nation states as well, where you can actually get more. You can get more involvement from your politicians, even though they're fearful of America's interests, fearful of ever sidestepping the United States of America. You can actually create more pressure on the global stage by getting European countries to criticize Israel, to create an even more expansive permission structure to say Israel, right? And then all of that ultimately becomes costly for the United States of America. In the region, though, the way to do this is by expending America and Israel's munitions. It's that simple. That's it. I mean, this is what happened after the 12-day war. Had Iran fired a few more large volleys of missiles, Israel could have exhausted its supply of top-tier Arrow 3 munitions, one of the U.S. officials said. Okay? THAAD operators burned through munitions at a furious clip, firing more than 150 missiles to shoot down the waves of Iranian ballistic missiles, according to U.S. officials. That is nearly a quarter of the interceptors ever purchased by the Pentagon. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. It wasn't just the THAAD. The U.S. ran through large numbers of shipborne interceptors as well, and Israel quickly drained stockpiles for its own systems. Dozens of Iranian missiles got through anyway. It would likely take more than a year and cost between $1.5 billion to $2 billion, debatable, to replenish the THAAD interceptors fired during the 12-day war, according to Wes Rumbaugh, a CSIS fellow who researches Pentagon missile procurement and budget details. Most of America's Arleigh Burke class-guided missile destroyers are armed with SM-2s, SM-3s, and SM-6s. Those warships also went through interceptors at an alarming rate. During the 12-day war, the ship shot about 80 SM-3s at Iranian threats, according to a U.S. official. So everyone who predicted that Israel's multi-layered missile defense was 1 to 2 weeks away from critical grid attrition was correct. It could have been sooner, depending on the tempo of attacks. That stage would force Israel to triage its finite supply of interceptors, saving the rest only for sensitive military sites, while they let the rest through to strike their targets. This is obviously a situation Israel would want to avoid. Do you understand? It's a multifaceted, multi-layered approach. At the end of the day, war can be as complicated or as simple as you want to explain it. And I think the simplest ways to describe war is attrition, both in the economy, but in the simplest terms, attrition with how much it costs for an Iranian missile to be lobbed in the direction of Israel versus how much it costs for Americans to defend Israel. Okay? It is unimaginably costly to defend Israel like this. It is, in comparison to how costly it is to defend Israel like this, it is insanely cheap to attack Israel. If you are Iran, it's not even a comparison. It's the same with Yemen. Operation Prosperity Guardian under the Biden administration was a multi-billion-dollar operation, and it failed. They wanted to stop the Houthis from implementing a blockade and making it so that regular commercial shipping that goes to Israel could continue, that they wanted to stop the Houthis implementing a blockade against Israel, okay? They wanted to do that. They wanted to stop it. It failed. Donald Trump continued it, restarted it, and continued it. It was even more costly when Donald Trump did it. And they still were completely incapable of stopping the Houthis from implementing a blockade. So they had to come to the bargaining table and implement a negotiation where they basically said, Houthis, stop attacking our ships, our Navy ships, American Navy ships, and you can continue bombing Israel if you want. That was literally the deal that Donald Trump put together. He even said the Houthis are very brave warriors. They're very brave people. They fight so good. And in the process, one of Israel's 2 major ports has gone bankrupt. The Houthis did that, okay? The Houthis dropped during the second wing of Operation Prosperity Guardian, approximately 20 plus Reaper drones that are around $20-30 million a pop. 4 fighter jets dropped in the process due to maneuvering incidents, due to hitting one another, and they were able to strike the Ben Gurion airport. Is not even a question. It is not costly for them to do this. It is incredibly costly for America to continue doing this.
Hello, stupid. And I mean, yeah. In 2021 as well, the Biden administration pushed Israel very firmly towards a ceasefire, though not quite as firmly as Reagan did. So this is something for which there is precedent, and it's something for which, even if there wasn't precedent of it happening in the past, you can just look at the relationship between the US and Israel, see how much the US gives to Israel, how much Israel is reliant on the US, and easily conclude that yes, the US president could absolutely force them to stop what they're doing in Gaza. The question is not, can he? The question is, why doesn't he? But again,
Thank you. Exactly.